since the beginning times, this is like BC, BC. Yeah, we've. Oh, that's loud. We're on the main road, bro. Since the beginning of time, we've learned how to survive. Survival ended up also causing a situation where we learned how to survive, where we were all taking each other, and then scarcity came, where now the farms we are taking care of, we're growing a lot, but you're not doing that much work, and I'm doing all this work, and now we have to let you have as much, the same as us, when we're doing the most work. That's not cool. And so now the ego gets involved, and it's like, oh, why are you getting more food than we are? We're supposed to split it even, you know? So that also causes a separation. Now that separation causes conflict. Conflict causes resentment, as well as, what's the word that I'm using? Resistance. Yes? So with that, causes war. We are known for moving in a way where our survival instinct is through the conditions of going through war. Yes? And I'm saying this just so the females who are watching, so you understand. Yeah? I'm not trying to speak and say everything that men have done is okay. Yes, I'm saying just listen and just like really understand the history of why men are the way they are. I'm not saying this is the entire truth, but this has to do with a lot of it. So speaking in regards of history, we've been in war, we've gone through war since the beginning of time, since man could walk the earth. And so when it comes to males or the masculine energy, a lot of our survival instinct is through men. Yeah. Now, when you prepare someone for war, I'm not sure if you guys ever done the Marine Corps practices or the workshops or the actual hold workshops or retreats not retreats, but I forget the name of it. Yes. And so I went to one of them, and I thought it was really interesting of how they try to literally recruit people because they're really cool about it. But after you're recruited, the whole process after is just different. And so we're taught that we have to be tough in war. You cannot have emotions. You're taught that you have to learn how to survive. You have to go through extreme emotional, mental, and physical traumatizing exercises so you can learn how to adapt to situations where you may have to kill someone that's either a baby, a child, a woman, or this or that, right? And through all these conditionings, we're taught that we have to be tough. Yes? When in reality, we stray away to realize that we're human. Yeah? And this is a huge thing. This is a huge thing. And not showing weakness is something that's been being taught for eons. Eons and eons. You guys agree? Yes? And so, going from that part of history, it's really crazy because where we are now and where we come from, there's a long lineage of conditions, of patterns that we've been taught, that we've been conditioned, domesticated, as well as it's also in our DNA from just family, not just from family, but from communities, from circumstances, situations. And so the biggest issue is not being able to express what we actually feel. Yes. So now you have men who go to war or men who go to jails. Yes. And now when they come back from war or when they come back from prison being incarcerated, we are not taught how to live life as a human again. Right?
Reintegrate.
Huh?
Reintegrate.
We're not taught how to reintegrate. Yes, I'm working with a few people who literally just got out, fresh out. And a lot of things that they tell me is this society is not built for a man like me because one, he's black, and two, he has no resources. He can't get a job because once you're incarcerated, that removes like 68% of jobs that you can actually work. That's like a lot. And then the other jobs are already like basically taken. So if they want you, it's like if they like need you. But like once you're incarcerated, it's really hard for you to get a job. Yes. And so in prison, to speak just clearly, in prison, you go to jail, they treat you like shit, you have to learn how to survive, you get out of jail, and you're still in survival mode. Yes? So again, all we know is survival mode. All we know is how to be tough. All we know is not to show weakness. All we know is not to really allow your emotions to come to the surface. And again, this has been something that's been going on for years. And going back again in regards to history, we have the Viking Age. I'm not sure if you guys have ever done any research on Vikings, but even Vikings, yes, they are not allowed to show emotions because all they have to do is kill and conquer. The Vikings' way of living was killing and conquering and having sex. Killing and conquering and having sex. So that was the way of living. Yeah. They killed, they raped, sexually assaulted, all these things. Again, eons. This happened for a very, very, very long time. Now, war also still continues, obviously. Like there's war still going on today, you know? Now imagine like the first war that like ever started. And then when wars are created or when they need recruitment for people in wars, who do they usually call? Men. Yes? So when they call men, and we go through this whole process of being conditioned, you can't feel anything, you have to put your emotions to the side, you can't cry, you gotta be tough, never show weakness, and then now that just carries. Now there's a point in time even when they had to take all the men in whatever society, in whatever culture, they're like, oh, we need all the men to come fight in this war, and blah, blah, blah. And now you're just left with mothers and children. Even little boys. In South Africa and in West Africa, that was a huge thing. They even took little boys to go fight wars. Like, this is a real life thing. From the 1900s too, and the 1800s. A real life thing. And so, again, this is just history. I'm not even speaking on just like modern facts as in right now. Something else I wanted to speak on is, I'm not sure if you guys know this, but 1 in 4 women are sexually abused and sexually assaulted. That's a lot. That's a lot. That is a lot. For men, it's 1 in 6. That's also a lot. That's a shitload. That's not that far. But we don't hear about it. No one talks about it because as men, we have to be tough. We can't show weakness. We can't show emotions, and it's hard for us to already be vulnerable. Right? So 1 out of 4 women are sexually assaulted, sexually abused. 1 out of 6 men are also sexually assaulted and sexually abused. That is a lot. Now I want to ask a question. Actually, no. We're going to do this after. We're going to do this after. We're going to do this after. This is after the live stream. And again, if you guys have any other questions, please ask. And yes, so someone said men don't come forward about it. Now please understand. Please You're like, oh, it's gonna get juicy. So, women, please, ladies, females, queens, please understand. It's not that we cannot and say something if you feel, oh no, that's completely off. Yeah? Because I don't represent all men. I'm just trying to speak in what I feel makes sense. What my intuition tells me. Does it make sense? Yeah. So again, please say something if you disagree. It's not that men do not say anything. We do not come forward about it. There is an embarrassment. There is shame. And again, we are not taught to share our feelings. So if we can't share our feelings, what makes you think we're going to share something vulnerable about us? There's a shame behind when a man speaks about something that's very vulnerable to him. We are taught in a culture that when men show weakness, it is not good. You know, when men show vulnerability, it's somehow frowned upon. And it's not that we don't come forward about it because we don't want to, it's because we don't feel safe to. Absolutely. Right? We don't feel safe to. If we don't feel safe to communicate something, then you're not going to get the vulnerable side of us. You know, and that's one of the most important things. So now I'm going to say something.
I think there's also the possibility that the guy himself doesn't realize he's being sexually assaulted. Because if you tell it to a friend, they'd be like, "Oh, I would have liked that. I would have liked it if a girl came on to me and did that for me." And so he buries that. He may possibly bury that within himself because he thinks like, "Oh, that really wasn't sexual harassment. Like, another guy might want that, and so like maybe I wanted that." So that can be misinterpreted and buried away somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't know. This is like extremely deep, so I'm gonna try to keep it short. I think when it comes down to it, when we say it's not safe, the idea of it not being safe is it's because it's the bottom line is you feel like you're gonna get emasculated.
That's the next
That's
thing.
the word right here. Yeah? The idea that you are not a man. Point blank. And this is not, and I think there's a misconception that it comes only from men, in the sense that like you're gonna get emasculated from men. More so comes from, and obviously heterosexual, from women. The idea of being emasculated from women and being seen less as a man from across the board. I'm just gonna keep it there. I have more to add, but I'm gonna say that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Now something else I wanted to add to that. Thank you for sharing that, by the way, both of you. That's actually the next thing I was gonna. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I think you said it, but I just wanted to say it a little bit more clearly. We're taught as men from a very, very, very young age that vulnerability is weakness, and they're not the same. We're taught that being vulnerable is to be weak, and that's not true. Which is why we are afraid to show the vulnerability of opening up about any kind of pain, because if we're in pain, then we're weak, and that's not true.
Yeah. Emotions, sensitivity, that's all considered.
Exactly.
What are you gonna say?
No, because
What are you gonna say?
oh no, I was just gonna say because you said pain. I see pain or unhappiness is viewed as unhappiness. Because like from my experience, right? Like I come off as like my thing is that I'm trying to learn how to be vulnerable and learn how to speak about it without having to feel like it's like too overwhelming for others. Like I am unhappy because I'm in pain, but like it's like viewed as like, oh, he's like not being enough. Like I'm not happy, so therefore it's like I'm perceived like something negative. Like I'm unhappy, it's just very looked down upon. Like it's like it's weird. It's like doesn't I lost it. How did I lost it? Yeah,
It's a learning process, right?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Can I add
yeah.
one caveat? I just wanted to like when you talk about men and like women in terms of energies, like the two different sides of the same coin that I think of are, and not one, we both need both. So like when it comes to men, we think of like logic per se, logical thinking and action, and for women, like being empathy and emotional thinking, right? So like a lot of the things that's connected towards men is the ability to provide, and then for women, the ability to understand. And so I remember watching this movie, documentary called The Red Pill. Controversial, but I think it has a lot of really good points that you mentioned, and I think everyone should watch just because it's good to be aware of them. That the idea of the usefulness of men is measured upon what they can provide.
Say that one more time for the people in the back. Snaps for that. Say that louder. Speak louder.
The usefulness of men is dependent on what they can provide. And so like the moment they can't provide something, the less of a man they are. And so it goes deeper than just war, I think.
Yes, oh, of
It's
course.
way deeper than war.
Of course.
Ego, and then the idea of being able to provide, always being able to provide. And that's kind of where it comes from. Now, obviously, we're talking, because I think it can get super deep. We're talking about like heterosexual and things like that. And that's where it comes to a thought process of like, where does it?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. What time were you gonna say?
Just that, I mean, I'm huge on like trauma and past as well. And so when it comes to the root of those things and why we fear weakness or any of that stuff, obviously because it's like the messaging is pushed into us. And any fear that runs that deep is usually related to death, which goes back to survival. So it's like, oh, if I'm weak, then I'm unable to like provide in the future, or like fend for myself, or attract a mate so that I can continue on to live. So that if you're afraid to like share your emotions and you're weak, then you're incapable of doing the things, which is like providing and doing all the stuff, and you're not going to get the support, all these kind of things. So any of the fears or traumatic experiences that we experienced as a kid is all just correlated to literally thinking we're going to die or be worth nothing. And so when I think of safe, I think of a counter argument that a lot of women have, where it's like, and then it goes past gender and starts transcending into like race and all that kind of stuff. But it's always like, why should we, like, we're already being oppressed, so why should we make you feel safe when you already do that to us? Is what I think of as like the counter argument. And it's like, I think when we talk about feeling safe, it's more so like men have to learn how to feel safe within themselves. So it's like, well, the only way I know how to be is to do the things that I was taught. And if I'm not doing that, then I don't feel safe. But the things that we do that we're taught to feel safe are making other people feel unsafe, right? So being deep in our masculine can hurt other people, because being deep in, whether you're hard feminine or hard masculine, if you're too much of that, it bleeds on into other people. So it's really, again, how do I learn how to be safe, like within myself? So not necessarily asking someone else to be that space for us, but learning how to have the courage to go within ourselves so that we learn how to feel safe within our own masculinity and find what's healthy in it, and then tapping more into our femininity if we struggle with that. So that's what I was thinking when it comes to that stuff.
Cool. Oh, we're jumping all over. I was trying to stay on the structure, but we're hitting all. Fuck it. We're hitting all the points. We're hitting all the points. So that was beautiful. That was great. That was well said. So someone asked, so what's your opinion if you're unable to provide from a financial standpoint? What's your opinion? What's your opinion of what? Provide for from a financial provide
as
to
a man?
as a man.
Period.
Yeah, as a man. Period. Maybe.
Yeah, I would think as a man, period.
Like, do I feel like a failure if I can't provide?
Yeah, I don't
Right.
Like, or
So what's your opinion if you're unable to provide from a financial standpoint? Let's say maybe to a family or to a woman?
Yourself.
Or just yourself, or just in general.
Right.
I'll just say in general.
Yeah, I agree with Charlie.
But-
you kind of feel like either a failure or what's expected of you, you're not able to meet what that expectation is. That you're expected to provide. You're expected to be able to do all these certain things and whatnot. And if you can't do that, then you're basically, again, back to what the concept, you're not worth anything.
Yeah. And something I was going to add on to that is when it comes to having to provide, there's always an expectation that's put on the male gender. And then there's also assumptions that are also created as well that's also put on the male gender. But something that I also want to say is the point, someone said something that was really great. They're like, oh, not to take away from men, but this also happens to women too. That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point. It also happens to women too, but it's acknowledged on women more than it is acknowledged on men. Literally, there are abortion clinics, and they have resources for women when they go through abortions, but they don't have anything for males. Think about
That's
that.
abuse, I think.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Think that's a thing.
Battered.
Think about that. So they have resources and gatherings and communities for women who do go through abortions, but how about the males that are also emotionally taken back as well? That's a thing. And I thought that was so interesting. I started looking, I researched, and I was like, there isn't one. There isn't one. That is so crazy. That is so nuts. And I was like, why?
But is it that there isn't one because men do not feel comfortable to actually go to one, or is it because no one's ever thought of it?
We don't know.
Both, probably.
Either right, either or. It could be
Similar
both.
numbers for battered people. So like I think there's a bunch of shelters for women who are battered, but there are men who get domestically abused.
There's men
It's
who
like only
that's
one.
and that's the next thing. So there's men who get domestically abused, but that's not something that there's no light on that as well. It's all so. What's interesting is we speak about how men don't share these things that happen. I get that, but like also the media doesn't share it. Movies don't share it. Like there's other platforms that don't share the truths behind the pain that we carry as men, behind the traumas that we carry from our ancestors, from our lineage, from masculine energy, and is a huge thing, and it's almost acknowledging the fact of that we're not able to share. Because if it was shown, I'm pretty sure I'd be like, oh, they have this for men? Let's go. Oh, they have this? Great, let's do it. Let's be a part of that. You know what I mean? For example, like if I didn't have this, we wouldn't be here. You know, if someone wasn't like, hey, let's do this thing for males and talk about this, like no one would have the idea of, oh, maybe there is something to do to create a healing or understanding or blah, 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 to lead us towards a healing for our traumas. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so that's one of the biggest things I think about. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. And so something that you said is I realized that men are emasculated. Was it you or you? Men are emasculated. It's huge, and it connects to traumas. Yes. So again, from being used to going through war, and it's not just war. I just use war because war is, No, war is just, it's like the tip of the iceberg. It's just, war is just constant.
He says it.
Right, I was just like, war is just constant. It's just something that's just been around and it's very present on all different types of forms on society, whether it's media, Instagram, on the news, in newspaper, it's everywhere. We all know about the concept of war. And then the idea and the concept of war, there are certain things that are taught. Now, and what the craziest thing is, yeah, I'm not even gonna try to go in order anymore because we already spoke on all this. I'm like trying to go in order. I'm like, nah, we touched on that. So the biggest thing is for everyone who's listening. Also, if you have any questions, please ask or whatever. The biggest thing is like how Vatana was saying, is when we are carrying certain traumas, why do we feel that we cannot share? Or do we feel as if we have resources to heal our traumas?
I actually want to go back to the abortion clinic. I had a crazy
sorry,
experience.
One sec.
Yeah.
I was told that when we're speaking with our masks on, they can't really.
Yeah, so that's how we have to really project.
Like further away.
Oh, is that comfortable with the quick mask?
Oh, yeah.
I've seen most of y'all.
Thanks. I was at your house like a week ago.
I'm pretty sure I've seen all of you too, yeah.
So, from personal experience actually, which is kind of crazy that we had touched into it because I actually didn't expect to come to this place. I was in a relationship and it's gonna be a father. Went through that whole like holy cow I'm nervous phase and then was like I'm gonna be a father. Was extremely excited and then was told that she had a miscarriage. I was devastated. I had got over it. We separated and was in another relationship and I got a phone call and was told, hey, I'm dealing with some stuff in my own life, but I can't get past this situation unless I talk to you. I got an abortion. I was never even told about it. So I was like, I would have been a single dad. I had that opportunity taken from me. My bad. Trying not to get there.
That's okay, you're human.
And I kind of was like, yo, all right, put on my back and continue. And I was like, do me a favor, just don't call me again. We left it there. So, like you said, it's just not something that like we're expected to talk about. We deal with, and yeah, if there was a place to go, I probably would have shared and healed from that. So, but yeah, like you said, it's kind of crazy.
So what's really interesting, thank you for sharing that, most importantly. What's really crazy about that, two things. One, look how we naturally go to, when our feelings start to come up, we say sorry. We're like, oh, so sorry, I don't mean to go there. Naturally, we don't even think about it. We start to tear, we're like, sorry, I don't mean to, you know what I mean? I'm like, that's a condition. We're conditioned to not, and you guys just saw it on live stream. We're conditioned to not show our feelings, you know. And when it does start to come out, we're like, I shouldn't be going there, or we shouldn't. But we shut down, we close off, or we block ourselves from allowing our emotions to come to the surface, you know. And that's beautiful. And the other thing I want to talk about as well was the whole idea of, what was it? Nope, lost it. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. But thank you for sharing that, yeah.
I want to touch on something that you were saying, because as soon as he said my bad, I felt pain. The fact that he even, like, he was even ready to share that, and then he was like, I wasn't planning on going there. Like, that's not a place that we have to go. That is here. Everything is here. Like, we exist in that constantly. And that's what I was trying to explain about earlier in the pain side, is like, we're so afraid to be like, hey, look at this, because we're so afraid of people judging us, thinking that we're less of a man, etc., whatever it might be, that we don't even try to go there, quote unquote. And like, that hurts everybody else, because when he started to break, I felt it too. And I was like, no, please do, because that's where we need to go. That's where we start to heal, is within the pain. And I'm really glad you did that. I'm really glad you said that. So thank you guys.
Thank you. And that's why we're here. Like, that's the point of why I wanted us to come here, so we can share these things. And we're gonna dive more into it. But crap, you said something very useful, but I forgot what it was. Yeah, no, it'll come. Something that someone asked, which was really cool. They were saying, and he came out like really open to me, and he was just like, how do you feel about being the person who was sexually harassed and okay with it. I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, well, because I was sexually harassed one time or sexually abused. And so this was actually relates to what you're talking about. I was sexually abused one time and I was okay with it because I thought that was the love I deserved. And I was like, what made you realize it was actual abuse? When I realized I was acting the same way towards others. And then someone made me aware of that. And then when I was speaking to him and he was just like, because we are a part of something together and we were having certain conversations and we were talking about tracing patterns, tracing traumas. And then they're like, I realized this and blah, 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 holy crap, crazy. And so I was like, whoa, that's nuts. And the reason why I want to share this is because I've also experienced that as well. And I was like, wow, maybe the love that I thought was the right love was from when I was sexually abused. And I carried that and thought that's the love I should give to everyone. But that was not the love that I didn't know any better. I didn't know any better. You know what I mean? Because I was a kid. I was literally a child. And that to me, that was my love because parents weren't around. And I was like, I think this is love. And then I was embarrassed, and I actually did research on this. There's an embarrassment, there's a shame when we speak about things like this. And because I was like, why don't I talk about this? Why can't I share this? And I was like, wow, I realized that if I speak about it, I feel I'm afraid to be judged. I'm afraid to be shamed. I will be embarrassed. And it's also hard for me to be vulnerable and share that. And so I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And the point of why I'm saying this is because going back to what you said, and I remember, we carry these things. So it's not that I don't want to go there, it's always there with us all the time, the pain. But if we don't do anything about it, we're going to continue these patterns and it's going to pass on to generations and generations and generations. So the reason why I also have us here is so we can heal that. We can talk about it. We can discuss it. We can release. And we can also make sense of things and look at each other so we can learn from each other as well as grow with each other. Because there's a lot of things that we don't understand. And for example, I've witnessed even people in our community connecting with women in a way where they think the woman wants them in a way, and they don't realize it. And they're in a place where the male is basically like entrapping them, and they're like, yeah, you're with me now. And the female kind of just shuts off. And I'm just like, that's so interesting. Why is that happening? And I've spoken to plenty of women about this, and we do this all the time. We have a thought or we have an assumption that if we act this way, women like this, and it's okay because it works for other people. And then we just carry that pattern and then move forward with that. And then women on the other side are like, no, we're not freaking okay. We're bothered by it. We don't like it. And you just control us. That's you literally entrapping. You're putting us in a cage, and you see us as an item almost in a way. And it almost and something I was going to say about that was, I feel like it comes from, again, it's not just war, but it's just from a lineage of how we've grown to be as males. Power, control, and fear. Power, control, and fear. We fear what we do not understand as humans. and how we've acted through that fear has been in extreme ways, whether it's oppressing and suppressing women, and or whether it's seeing something that they can do that we can't and be like, no, 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 no. We need to have power and control over that. Because if we can't control something, then we have no power over it. And if we don't have power over it, anything can happen to us. And if anything can happen to us, that's our life, just like how you said. That's fear. Yeah, we're afraid of being afraid. Right? It's crazy. We're afraid of being afraid. So if we can control society in a way where we don't have to be afraid or experience that fear, then it just gives us comfort, you know? And because we can say predominantly religion, the system, institutions, governments, all different forms of institutions and organizations are mostly dominated by men. Do we agree? Do we comprehend this? Are mostly dominated by men. Even religions. Certain religions I've studied and been really concentrating on, like, why don't they allow women to also lead the meditation, or to also be a part of the temple, or to also this and that and that? Why is that? Yeah.
I think doubling back to power, control, and fear, testimony says about power, control, and fear, and I don't think it's particularly against women only. I think it was against your fellow person. People that succeeded the best at this laid the groundwork for what we have now. If that makes sense. I think women being oppressed is like a byproduct of it, but I also think men get oppressed at the same time. So like there's a saying that I heard that blew my mind, that the gender norms are not a product of patriarchy. The patriarchy is a product of gender norms. And like it blew my mind. I was just like, it's a thought process to think over. Let me think about that. Because like if you think about any archy, for the most part, it always is supposed to benefit the person or the entity in its name. A monarchy benefits the kings, queens, dictatorship or whatever. Any archy benefits that. But we talk about where in terms of the patriarchy, there's a lot of men suffering in the patriarchy, and a lot of people would say, well, it's because, it's because of men in the sense, like, it's because of men you're oppressing yourselves, and the generational trauma, and then women can oppress men through the patriarchy because of the patriarchy. It's a whole chain reaction, but it makes me, I'm kind of going off topic here, so let me go back. Excuse me. So, the whole idea of power, I think, comes, and then fear and control comes from controlling everything, not just women.
Yeah, no, of course.
And I think it's important to really point that out. And I think a byproduct of that comes from the idea that when we talk about the weaknesses of men, being emotional, letting yourself in, women have that. And so, like when you hear the whole saying, like, don't run like a girl, don't do this like a girl, and it's this idea of like being a woman is bad. Being a woman is the worst thing you can be as a man.
Right.
But if you're a woman, then it's fine. So we have to keep that in mind in the sense that that's where it comes from, and that's why they don't let women have power in terms of government, religion. This is just the history. I'm not saying this is right. This is just the history of it and how I recognize, see why that's the case. And we know now, like that's not true. Well, we should have known for a while, but now we have science. But
beautiful. So. Anyone else? Okay. Something I want to. Hey, what up, Snoop? Hi, Snoop. Snoop. Something I wanted to touch on as well is that in regards to what you were saying, yeah, I do feel as if it also leaks into, it's just society. I mean, we live in a world where there's people who have power, control, and fear us. That's the truth. Because if we all got together like this and we're like, we don't like what the system is doing, you're going to have a huge problem. But we just haven't done it yet. You know? But it's happened in many ways. Marcus Garvey, he's done it. A lot of people, you guys know who Marcus Garvey is?
Heard the name.
Look him up. Marcus Garvey, he's done it. So Malcolm X, Mother Teresa, yeah, Lauryn Hill, Queen Latifah, who else? Even Little Kim. You know, they've brought together. They brought together. And so. Lost my train of thought. Going to the next subject. Because I just want to keep in time. Okay, cool. Now, in regards to something I also feel is important to realize is just like I think it was Makeda that said something, was that women go through these things too. That's the thing that we need to realize is that, ladies, I know you go through a lot of pain. We know you go through a lot of pain. We know you've been oppressed. We know you're carrying a lot of pain and trauma. And it's not undermining that as well. It's something that's huge. It's shown. It's also on a platform where you guys do have resources. But something I also want to bring acknowledgement to as well is we also go through pain. We also have traumas. We also carry a lot of things that we have not healed from. But I can't speak on the fact that we've been oppressed from being males. As being males. What do you say? I can't speak on the fact that we've been oppressed on the idea as being males.
I think it's different.
I was going to say, I feel it's different in the sense of the resources that they have maybe for females in regards of certain traumas that we don't have for males is where I wouldn't say it's oppression, but I would say it's neglect. Basically neglecting or avoiding the truth of our humanity. And not realizing that we're like all humans and we all carry pain and we all say that again?
Oh no, I just said it's just in different ways.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is just in different ways.
I was gonna say that, like you said, like at the end of the day, we're not trying to say like one person is more oppressive than other. Like we all have our issues that we have to deal with.
Exactly.
And I think what's more important is having a space where we all can talk about it. And then eventually one day it won't be like, a space for men to talk about it and a space for women to talk about it, but a space where
all of us,
regardless of what gender or whatever you prefer, we can all talk about it together. And that I think as a whole will start changing how we feel as human beings, because regardless of like what you look like or what gender or preference or whatever you are, it's like we're all humans. And if we can talk about it in a sense where like, as a human, we should treat each other in this way versus like, I'm a man, I need to be treated or be a specific way and I can only go to this place to talk about it. If we can just do it in a day-to-day basis where like, this is my friend and she's a female and I talk to her about my traumas and then she talks to me about hers, and it's all okay. No one's like, I'm embarrassed to talk about it. And if that can happen in everyday life, things can be better.
Oh yeah, I feel like that's the remedy to creating a healing in a conscious collective humanity.
I can back off that real quick. I know I'm talking a lot, but I think just to add to that, it's like this idea of limited resources, and then by that we mean like potential. So like by talking about like men's issues and that we do have issues, there's this idea and it's understandable that if we talk about it, it's just like, are we taking away from women's issues? Like, but what about women's issues? And it's totally understandable because like again, the numbers, 1 in 4 women get abused, 1 in 6 women. So technically, they need the attention, but like, do we have to totally neglect one side? It's like, I think it's the difference between saying but and, right? So like, yeah, women definitely need the attention, and men do as well. So saying, but men, or like if you say men, like we go through this issue, but women go through it too, and they go through it. No, and women get through this. We need to be able to kind of widen our view of it, and see that like these things go hand in hand together.
And something to add on that, I was going to say, I think the most important thing that we have to be aware of and be conscious of is to change our patterns of communication. Once we change our patterns of communication, then we'll start to create an understanding and a healing within ourselves, as well as spread that healing to others. Like, for example, how Darian was like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to go. But like, not apologizing for feeling. Does that make sense? So we need to really recalibrate, as well as create new patterns for ourselves to, if we do feel, to allow ourselves to feel, to allow ourselves blessed, to allow ourselves to be human. But what were we going to say?
Something I was going to say, touching on that, is if you want to go back to the numbers in the sense of like 1 in 4, 1 in 6. If you want to look at numbers, we can talk about numbers that who's
Talking about
doing it. Not who's experiencing the backside of it, but who is abusing, who is assaulting, who is harassing. And a large number of that is men. And I think that's where the real problem lies. Because it's like, yes, resources for after it happens, but what about before? If we can prevent it, then the numbers after don't matter as much, because we can lessen all of the numbers. And that's where the and but thing comes in. Because yes, women are being abused and men are being abused, but men are the majority of abusers. And I think part of it, he said hurt people, which is where I'm going. And I think a big part of that is if we talk about this and we establish this is not okay, because a lot of again, like you said, hurt people. A lot of people don't know that they're hurt. A lot of people don't know any better. Like he said earlier, they don't know it's not okay, right? So they treat, in this example, men treat women with a certain kind of way because that's what we're taught is okay. That's what they see in movies, they see in music videos, they hear in lyrics, right? But if we can address that, if we can address those problems, if we can address the root of the issue, right? The deep traumas that are causing these things, then we can lower the numbers for everyone. And I think that when you get into the but and argument, where it's like, yes, but this happens to men too, yes, but this happens to women too, it's like, but you're fighting here when the problem is here. And we're only digging this deep, where like, this is the problem, and this is preventing us from getting down here. And I think a great way to do that is to find people that are open, that are involved in closed-minded, I'll say, groups, that can then bring that information to those groups and then make people relate to that. Because
I'm going to stop you right there,
Yeah.
because we have to be done. Something I was going to say as well is, which we can finish it off with, because I'm going to get off Flash on my Instagram, and then we're going to do our own thing. Is what are the remedies? You basically were saying it for me. So I was like, oh, this is great. I don't have to say anything. Right. It's not just about creating a healing, but our healing is also what can prevent. So if we take care of what we are going through inside, if we become aware of what is happening inside, if we become aware of how we've been taught, what information that we receive, and we can tackle all the 5 structures of ego: judgment, comparison, attachment, labels or compartmentalizing or classification, and then scarcity. Once we can tackle all those and really acknowledge and be aware of all those things whenever we are in a certain situation or anywhere, and be present and conscious with how we are being, then we can also prevent. Not only can we prevent, but we can also heal. Because if we want to move forward to a space where we can not just love each other as men, be an example as men, but love each other as humans. And it's not just seeing men and women, but just seeing each other as humans, where we can create a space together, heal together, work together, create empires together. Because the reality of the situation is we need each other. We need women, women need us. Point blank period. How I see it is as the masculine energy, I see us as trees. And the feminine energy, I see them as rich soil. Trees need soil. Soil will not need to exist without trees. Or else, what are they bringing their nutrients to? Does that make sense? Either or, it's all connected. We need to acknowledge each other as just a human, conscious, collective community. Yeah, what are you going to say?
2 things. I slightly disagree for a reason where it's like, I find that women are more so the root. When I say the root, it's more so because this whole system that we have, it's not oppression. I believe it to be systematic because we, as in men and women, created this system. Like the men, they have the whole thing of the power of creation of what they're doing, what they're supposed to do. But then women have to think of intuition. They're the mindset behind everything. So it's like we do this, but they're the details. We have the, do we eat it? Do we kill it? Do we sleep with it? They're the details that bring everything together, bring everything together for us. So it makes it very easy. And then as time goes on, things change, but our brains don't change the wiring. It stays that way all the time. And that's why all the time we're like, we need women, we need men, we need to coexist. But we made the system, sadly, on this side, to be like, oh, we need to cater towards women much more than us because we don't need it. They need it, they need this. Where in actuality, it's like, well, y'all need it too, but if you want to give us a spotlight, sure, that is okay, that's fine. But that makes us quickly forgotten. And because of that, we're still stuck in the toxic circle because we don't have that intuition where they're tall for themselves. They're doing whatever it is that they need to. But that creates us being separated the entire time without connecting together. And then we create something for them, but there's nothing coming back. There's nothing coming back.
Right.
And then now they have all the resources that they want to. And we can say whatever they want to a male and not be slandered for it. Male say something to a woman. Immediately, white knight 1, 2, 4, 16 will come and be like, hey, you can't do that, you can't do X, Y, and Z, but you don't know what happened before coming in. You don't know what she probably did. You don't know probably what they did. You're only going off of what you saw and mix of things. And it's just like, immediately, people are going to just come at you because, oh, you're a guy, you shouldn't talk to a person that way. Or you're a male, you shouldn't put your hands on her that way. I'm sorry, you didn't see her hit me 4, 5, 6 times just a little bit ago.
Right.
But it's like,
it's a thing.
It's perspective, and this happens in the shadows, and people don't understand that all these things, men cry in the dark, they hold on to this the entire time. And then finally, it's like, oh, you want to talk about it? Okay, cool, you guys can figure it out. It's always figure it out for us. We give them something. But since we create so much, it's like, you guys should have the ability to create something like this, or like a brotherhood or something to come together. So it's a matter of, again, going back to the root and figuring out, hey, what can we do to make this work for us? And it's just actually finding people who are willing to do it, because everyone will, but it's like, they don't have this to be like willing to go out and search for it. It's like, yeah, we have to create it. when someone sees someone creative, they're like, oh, that's cool, that's awesome, share. Okay, cool, we'll go over there. And then it'll just grow. And it's like you just have to kind of do it on your own type of thing. And then eventually it becomes at the same level of what we have with women. It's recognized because it's like, oh, you guys did this. You did this for each other. And it comes back together again.
Yeah.
But it's just separated.
Yeah, well, that's the point of this journey. I was like, we gotta start somewhere, right? So that's the whole point of this journey. Us getting together, understanding what we have to heal through, and then they are getting together, and then for that one day to just come together and just understand and heal with each other. And something I wanted to correct as well was, I like how you said roots. Yeah, I feel like women are the roots. But for me, I also see roots as like the soil, the enrichment, like that. So that's, I guess, tough. So for me, I see like us as from the trunk up, and then the roots down are the feminine energy.
Right.
Does that make sense? So that's how I'm just like, yeah, because behind that expression of what they say, behind every great man is a powerful woman.
Yep.
Because something I want to speak about real quick, and then I'm just gonna end it, is even when it came to all these organizations through Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, that they were showing all these men doing all these things, people forgot about all the amazing women, Angela Davis, what's her name? Even there's so many names. Coretta Scott. King, oh man, she Martin Luther King would not be shit without her, is what it was. She was doing all these things before even he was, and then they got together, and he, like, Martin Luther King's "I Had a Dream" speak was from a woman in church. He was inspired by a woman in church. But people don't know this. People don't know that. You know what I mean? So like all these structures and organizations, yeah, you see the males up front, but who put it together? Women. All women. And we don't know this. And so like, again, we have to also snap fingers for them, because although they're not given the light of how much they've helped us grow and help us get to places where we have power to control, it's because of them. You know what I mean? And that's just something to acknowledge, and just, we all gonna stand up. We all gonna stand up now.
That's a manly shit. I don't need that.
Yeah. I don't care about that. But so in regards to not just continue, I'm gonna get off live stream in a few seconds, because I'm gonna go to Patreon. So again, remedy, healing. We need to heal ourselves, because once we heal ourselves, and we also heal our past. We also heal our past traumas, and we also heal our past generations, and we can also carry that healing through the next generations in society today, and bringing awareness to not just what's happening inside of us, but to also what's happening outside of us. You know what I mean? Like, if you see something, if you hear something, if you feel something in that present moment, say something, be something, do something. You know what I mean? Because sometimes I say do nothing and leave nothing undone, but because sometimes all we have to do is be the example. That's what this is. That's where we are. We can be the example. We can leave here and understand that there's not any of this happening, and we can share what happens in here with others, so they can understand, or they know there's a place to go where we are actually coming together. And so that's something that's really important. Now, the thing I wanted to also say was, thank you guys, thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
I want to give a shout out to all the homies here. We got Jay Quizzle, we got J-Rod, we got Charizard, we got Maculicious, we got Gary Gary, we got Justin Soaking Wet, we got Chia Chia, we got Chia, we got Andalicious, we got Falsey, we got Khaled,
Another one.
we got Thatch That Ass with Tana. And then you just got me. So you just got me. So that's it. So what I'm going to get off live stream now because we're going to can you move to the side? We're gonna have a divine brotherhood. Yeah. So just so you guys know, I'm going to just continue the live stream on Zoom, and just so we can have it all recorded for us as well. I'm also going live on Patreon. For people who are on my Patreon, who can view this. We're going to go through certain exercises and talk about certain things, and it's going to get real deep. So if you're not on a Patreon, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Get on it. If you are, you get to see everything that's about to go down. Patreon.com/JeffJP. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for being here. Women, I love you. You are. But again, thank you guys. I appreciate y'all. I hope this helped. I hope it made sense. If it doesn't, there's a lot for us to talk
It's like a habit.
I put this in.
Everyone.